Hi guys, it's Morgan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Season 2 of What If. Now, if you haven't seen Season 2 of What If, there will be spoilers in this review. So stop watching if you don't want to be spoiled. So here's my review of Season 2 of What If. Since Nebula and Yondu weren't close in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I liked that they had a past together in this episode. And it wasn't a surprise that Nebula was determined to find out who killed Yondu, even though the real cops didn't care and scrubbed the scene. I also liked seeing how Nebula joined Nova Prime after Ronan the Accuser killed Gamora and Thanos. I was surprised to see that Howard the Duck ran a casino. But the scene when Nebula went to him for help in her investigation was pretty funny. And when Nebula found out that someone was planning on invading Xander, it wasn't a surprise when she decided that she had to destroy the codes that would open the planetary shield before they could be released, even though Howard the Duck and Korg were worried about her safety. Since Nebula broke Yon-Rogg out of jail so he would help her destroy the code, and she was the one who arrested him in the first place, it wasn't a surprise that he betrayed her and took the source code. I was also suspicious of Nova Prime when Nebula was talking to her about Yondu's death, and she told Nebula to switch to a secure line. And I was right to be suspicious, since it was revealed that it was Nova Prime who was trying to get the codes to give to Ronan so she could give him Xander. But I wasn't the only one who was suspicious. Nebula was too. And with the help of Howard the Duck, Groot, Meek, and Korg, Nebula was able to defeat Nova Prime and keep Xander safe. Since in this episode, Yondu actually gave Peter Quill to his father Ego after taking him from Earth, Ego was able to use Peter to destroy other worlds, which was really sad to see, since in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, that is something that Peter would never do. But since Peter was causing so much destruction, it was good that Peggy Carter and Howard Stark were able to put together a team to go after him. But it didn't go well, so it was lucky when Thor showed up and they were able to detain Peter. It was cute to see Peter and Hope Van Dyne bonding over music. And even though Hope freeing Peter might not have been the best idea, and she should have talked to her dad and the rest of the team first, I understood why she did it. Since Peter told her that he wasn't an alien, he was from Missouri and just wanted to get home. I really loved the scene when Hank Pym was talking to Peter at Peter's mom's grave. You could tell that Hank felt really sorry for Peter, and it was good that he was able to convince Peter to help them defeat Ego. It was also good that Howard Stark was able to convince the Winter Soldier, aka Bucky Barnes, not to kill Peter by telling him that the friend Steve Rogers loved would never take the shot. I was really proud of Peter when he was able to defeat Ego. And I thought it was really sweet when Ego said that Peter was human after all, and Peter said that his mom says he's a Star-Lord. It was also really sweet to see Peter be welcomed into Hank and Hope's family. But, like Thor said, Peter only destroyed Ego's corporeal form, but his planet still lived. So I really liked seeing Peter join the rest of the team to defeat Ego once and for all. I felt sorry for Happy Hogan when Maria Hill wouldn't listen to him and said that he wasn't a security professional. But it was pretty funny when Happy was talking to Darcy Lewis on the walkie-talkie. I also really love the idea of a Christmas party at Stark Tower. It was nice that everyone there didn't have to worry about fighting anyone, and they could just enjoy themselves. But thanks to Justin Hammer, that didn't last long. It was definitely a twist to find out that the creature the Avengers were fighting in the beginning of the episode was actually Happy after he accidentally injected himself with Hulk blood, which he was trying to find so he could make sure that Justin wouldn't get it. But since Happy was having a hard time getting in touch with any of the Avengers so they could help deal with Justin, Happy injecting himself with Hulk blood actually came in handy. It made sense that when the Avengers saw Happy in Hulk form, they attacked him, since they obviously didn't know that it was Happy. But luckily, Darcy stopped them and told them that Happy was the good guy and Justin was the bad guy. And Happy was able to throw Justin out of the window, but he also saved Justin before anything bad could happen to him. It was also really nice to see everyone praise Happy for what he did before going back to the party. And it was funny when Thor showed up late. It was funny how the Grandmaster reacted to seeing Tony Stark, but also not a surprise, since that's just the way that he is. And even though the Grandmaster told Tony that he would help him get back to Earth after Tony stayed and celebrated the Grandmaster's birthday, I had a feeling that he wasn't actually going to help Tony and was going to make Tony stay with him. And I was right. The team up between Tony and Korg was really funny. And even though they left Gamora in the cell, it was obvious that she was going to break out and go after them. It also made sense why Gamora hated Tony, since he stopped Thanos, but Tony proved that he was a good person when he didn't kill Gamora, and he told her that he was going to save everyone on Sakaar, and just to make Gamora upset, he told her that when he was done, he was going to go after Thanos. It was smart when Tony and Korg recruited Valkyrie onto their team. Something that I really love about What If is that we get to see characters that haven't really interacted in the Marvel movies meet and work together. I also thought it was an interesting plan when Tony challenged the Grandmaster to a race and said the winner gets Sakaar. But I was also hoping that Tony knew what he was doing, since it would be really bad if he lost. It was great that Tony was able to convince Gamora that she wasn't her father and could make her own decisions. And even though Gamora helped Tony in the race, it wasn't a surprise when she told him that things weren't over between them. I also really loved when, after the Grandmaster was defeated, the people of Sakaar made Valkyrie their new king, and I thought she was a very good choice. But things didn't look so good for Tony when he was just about to go home and reunite with Pepper when Gamora stopped him and took him to Thanos. But Gamora and Tony had a plan, and they defeated Thanos together. It was also pretty funny when, in the mid-credits scene, the Grandmaster told Topaz to sponge up his new puddle form. I liked that this episode started by showing the teamwork between Peggy Carter and Natasha Romanoff. But after season 1 of What If ended with Peggy and Natasha finding the Hydra Stomper suit and Natasha telling Peggy that someone was inside, it was sweet to see Peggy be excited to see Steve Rogers again, but I had a feeling he was going to attack them. And I was right. And Peggy found out that Steve had been brainwashed by the Red Room. And I also didn't blame Peggy for being upset when she found out that Nick Fury and Natasha had suspected that this happened, but didn't tell her. It was sad to find out that Steve's mission was to kill Bucky Barnes, since that would be something that Steve would never do if he wasn't brainwashed. But even though his life was in danger, I loved that Bucky blocked Natasha from killing Steve, since he knew that Steve would do the same for him. And Peggy was able to knock Steve out, and along with Natasha, took him to a secret location in Scotland where Steve offered to help them dismantle the Red Room and find a cure for his brainwashing. I really loved seeing Peggy and Steve catch up with each other, but that sweet moment didn't last long since they were attacked by robots and Steve's brainwashing was reactivated by Melina Vostokov. But luckily, Peggy was able to break through to Steve, but sadly, Steve decided to destroy the Red Room by seemingly sacrificing himself. But this episode ended on a cliffhanger right when Peggy and Natasha were getting ready to look for Steve, a portal opened up and Peggy fell into it, and it took her to a Renaissance-themed world where she saw variants of Nick Fury and Wanda Maximoff, who said that Peggy was the one who would be able to save their queen and their world. And I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen with that. I liked that this episode introduced us to a new character, Kahora, but I felt really sorry for her when her village was attacked and her brother Wata was captured. And Kahora was shot and fell into the Forbidden Lake, which caused her to be teleported to another dimension, where she found out that the missing people from her tribe had teleported to the Sky World and got powers and immortality, but couldn't return home. I liked seeing Kahora become familiar with her new powers and learn how to control them. And it definitely came in handy, since when the conquistadors entered the Forbidden Lake, believing that it was the Fountain of Youth, and invaded the Sky World, Kahora was able to stop them, and she was also able to bring the portal to the ground so she could return home, and convinced everyone else in the Sky World to join her. I was really proud of Kahora when she was able to defeat the conquistadors and save her people, and also make Queen Isabella make peace. But this episode also ended on a cliffhanger when Doctor Strange Supreme came out of another portal and told Kahora that he has been looking for her for a long time. And if you've seen the season 2 finale, you know that it's not for a good reason. I didn't blame Odin for banishing Hela, since she was obsessed with killing, but even though she was the villain in Thor Ragnarok, I did feel a little sorry for her when she realized her powers were gone. But she was able to fight Wenwu's army without them. But then Wenwu subdued her with the 10 rings and told her to show him what she was like with her crown. But when she tried to pick her crown up, she couldn't. I didn't blame Hela when she refused Wenwu's offer of an alliance, since she believed that in time, Wenwu would think that she was a monster, just like Odin did. And even though Wenwu said that he wouldn't, Hela still refused and tried to steal the 10 rings, but couldn't. Even though Hela pretended that she was going to kiss Wenwu before knocking him out, I don't hate the idea of them together. After Hela went to Tylo and learned martial arts, it was nice when she finally realized that what she really wanted was freedom from being controlled. And when Odin started to attack Wenwu, Hela joined Wenwu in fighting Odin, and they won, which made Hela worthy to wear her crown. And Odin, seeing how Hela had grown, gave her Asgard. It was also really nice to see Hela combine the Asgard army with Wenwu's army and see them fight to ensure peace in the 9 realms. Hela also ended up saving Gamora's planet when Thanos attacked it, which means Thanos never took Gamora. I was glad that we got to see what happened after the cliffhanger in episode 5, and we found out that Peggy agreed to help Wanda and Fury save their world, and she was able to save Prince Loki from being sucked into a rift, but unfortunately, she wasn't able to save Queen Hela, and because of this, King Thor ordered Sir Harold Hogan to track Peggy down. It was also pretty funny when Peggy revealed that she could hear the Watcher's narration. It was nice that Wanda still believed that Peggy was the key to their survival, even though King Thor didn't anymore. And it was also really nice to see Fury secretly give Peggy the mission to look for the Forerunner, who Wanda said was another time traveler who didn't know that they were the cause of their universe collapsing. Even though King Thor didn't believe in Peggy anymore, it was good that Wanda and Fury still believed in her. I liked seeing Peggy team up with Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Bucky Barnes, Scott Lang, and Bruce Banner to get the Time Stone from King Thor's scepter and use it in a device that would tell them who the Forerunner was. And even though they faced a lot of challenges along the way, they were able to get the Time Stone and found out that the Forerunner was Steve. But this episode also ended on a cliffhanger, since after Peggy said goodbye to Steve and sent him back to his own time, Doctor Strange Supreme showed up and told Peggy that he had a story for her. When Doctor Strange Supreme told Peggy that one of the universe killers he collected escaped and that he needed Peggy's help finding her, I was wondering who it was, since Doctor Strange Supreme never said a name, just that Peggy would know it was her when she saw her. I was actually wondering if it was Kahori, since Doctor Strange Supreme showed up at the end of her episode, and I was right. But she told Peggy that Doctor Strange Supreme was lying to her, and along with collecting universe killers, he was also collecting righteous heroes so he could feed them to the Forge. I understood why Doctor Strange Supreme wanted to resurrect his own universe and bring back Christine, but Kahori was right. He had driven himself mad, and even though Peggy had to fight someone she considered a friend, she did the right thing when she saved Kahori and freed Doctor Strange Supreme's prisoners to keep him busy while Peggy and Kahori escaped. I also really loved when Peggy told Doctor Strange Supreme that she would never do what he was doing to bring back Steve. I was surprised to see Zombie Wanda again. And since Peggy and Kahori were having a hard time fighting her and the other zombies, I was wondering how they were going to get out of there. But then Hela showed up and stopped the zombies. But when she told Kahori and Peggy to kneel to her, and Kahori said that the last woman who told her to do that regretted it, I couldn't help but think, that is true. It was pretty funny to see how easy it was for Kahori to send Killmonger away so Peggy and her could use his Infinity Armor against Doctor Strange Supreme. And it was also pretty smart of Peggy to use the Infinity Armor to create multiples of herself to fight the multiples of Doctor Strange Supreme. It was also a really sad scene when Doctor Strange Supreme made Peggy see Steve again, and Steve told her to stay with him and said that they would be together and that he loved her. But even though it was clearly hard for Peggy, she knew that it wasn't really Steve. I loved seeing all of Doctor Strange Supreme's prisoners give their weapons to Peggy and Kahori to use against Doctor Strange Supreme, while Kahori sent each of them back home. It was also really sad that even though Doctor Strange Supreme was defeated, we got to see his good side for a brief moment before he died. It was also bittersweet when the Watcher showed Peggy that Doctor Strange Supreme succeeded in resurrecting his universe and bringing back Christine, but it meant that he could never be reborn there. I also really loved that the season ended with Peggy asking the Watcher to show her the multiverse before he brought her home. And since it's already been confirmed that there'll be a season 3, I can't wait to see it. Thanks for watching, guys! If you saw season 2 of What If, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And if you want to see my reviews for each episode of season 1, check out the playlist. Also, Agatha All Along starts on September 18th, and I also plan on doing reviews for that. So if you want to see those videos or any of my other future videos, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.